welcome to the programme. First tonight, confirmation from a government minister that both of Yorkshire's national museums, which had been under threat, will stay open. There's been an outcry since the Science Museum Group warned 2 weeks ago that budget cuts meant one of its northern museums would close.
Well, last night's Up North, the MP George Galloway said Bradford's National Media Museum had been saved. And today the Culture Minister told us York's National Railway Museum in York was safe too. There's now a warning, though, that the museums may need to charge for admission. Danny Houston has this.
If there was never any doubt, why has the future of two of Yorkshire's national museums been causing such a stir? And why 12 days ago did the group in charge of the museums tell us it had no choice but to close one of its northern venues if cuts reached 10%? Unsurprisingly, protests began, and almost a week after closure was mooted, an inquiry was promised. 4 days ago, Yorkshire's council leaders lobbied the Chancellor. A deal was struck, and on Look North last night we heard MPs had been given assurances that with cuts of only 5%, the Media Museum in Bradford was safe. This morning on Radio York, the Culture Minister went even further.
There is no reason why any of these museums should close. They won't close.
They won't close?
They won't close. Let's not beat about the bush. They won't close. We will work very hard. There are certain issues we have to address to make sure they're as effective as they could be.
So no room for misinterpretation there. But the devil is in the detail, and that's the bit we won't have until next week. And that's the bit that will have to address the fact the museum group is losing money. And with everyone riled up, some fear it's the perfect time for the government to reintroduce charging.
I'm not saying that some people can't afford to make a contribution, and we already have donations here at the National Railway Museum. What I'm concerned about is pricing out a lot of people who are on low incomes that actually are inspired to be interested in science and technology, which is so important for the country's economic growth. And I'm concerned that this is being introduced through the back door. If that's what the government wants to do, they should grow a backbone and actually make the decision themselves. But clearly that doesn't seem to be what's happening. Money
is clearly an issue. Closure was the way the Science Museum Group said they'd deal with big cuts, a way to keep exhibits world class. What's clear is no matter what's said by George Osborne next week, there will not be more of it. So some in Bradford at least question how their museum can tempt visitors back.
I'm told that some of the exhibits, particularly the interactive ones for the children, don't work. And also some of the exhibits are quite old. So it really needs a brush up just to make the general offering far more interesting.
As for the museums themselves, well, amidst all this noise, the one voice they want to hear from is from the director of the Science Museum Group. He says he can't say any more until after the spending review. They have released a statement today, though, saying that they're encouraged by indications from DCMS about the level of funding, but they say they await confirmation of the actual details. And until then, they don't know which options will have to be considered. So very much as we were. Danny Houston, BBC Look North, York.
The Labour MP for Barnsley Central is Dan Jarvis. He's also the Shadow Arts and Culture Minister, and he joins us from Westminster now. Now look, the Culture Minister says the museums will stay open, but there is concern, isn't there, that with reduced budgets, falling visitor numbers and so on, more radical solutions are needed. What do you think they should be?
Well, firstly, I should say that I'm heartened by this encouraging news, but you're right, the devil will be in the detail, and we'll need to look at that very closely next Wednesday when the announcement is made. But on the face of it, if the Minister is true to his word, this would seem to be a good result for common sense and for all those people who've campaigned to keep our museums open. In terms of people paying to get into our museums, I don't support that. Free museum entry has been incredibly successful. Museums are not only mechanisms for teaching young people about our history and heritage, they're also important drivers for jobs and growth. So I think it would be short-sighted and it would be a mistake to go down the road of reintroducing charges and making people pay to come and visit these fine museums.
But we've heard that some of the museums have problems. They're not being updated, so to speak. Some of the reactive items just don't work. There's a factor of life here, isn't there, that if the museum hasn't got enough money in the first place, it can't improve. So charging has got to be the next step.
Well, of course, in the current challenging climate, museums, like galleries, like all cultural institutions, have got to look at the offer that they make to the public, and they need to be innovative in finding new and interesting ways to attract visitors. I hope that the debate we've had around our museums will actually encourage thousands of people nationally and locally to go and visit them, and hopefully that will be a source of useful revenue over the coming months. But absolutely, these are tough times, but I don't think it would be the right thing to do to go back to the bad old days where only those people who could afford to pay to go to a museum are able to do so.
OK, Dan, thank you very much indeed for joining us this evening.